the election campaign of 1860, and the divisions of the Democratic Party. In early 1860, the process of choosing presidential candidates began. Many expected the contest to be between Douglas and Seward. The process of choosing party candidates was to provide several surprises. The 1860 Democratic National Convention. Stephen Douglas was a well-respected Illinois Democrat senator and negotiator, an architect of the 1850 Compromise and the passing of the 1854 Kansas-Nebraska Act, and a veteran of the 1858 debates with Lincoln. John Breckinridge, a Kentucky senator who was Lincoln's wife's cousin and was personally on good terms with the Republican candidate, had supported Douglas's candidacy in the 1856 Democratic Convention and served as Buchanan's vice president from 1857 to 1861. The outgoing president himself backed Breckinridge, who became the candidate of the Southern Democrats. Like Douglas, Breckinridge argued that when a territory became a state, its voters should decide whether or not to allow slavery. Unlike Douglas, however, the Kentucky senator publicly committed to a federal slave code. Several states had drawn up slave codes, which put into law the status of a slave and the rights of their owner. They guaranteed the owner's power and the slave's powerlessness. The codes tended to ban slaves from learning to read or write, owning a weapon of any kind, engaging in any kind of trading with other slaves, or traveling without permission. The punishments specified were harsh. If such a federal slave code replaced state law, it would secure the place of slavery in the United States. In the event, the Democratic Convention broke down and Southern delegates left in disgust. Northern Democrat Douglas was consistently topping the poll, but didn't gain the majority support needed to become a winning candidate in a convention which had already turned down the idea of including a federal slave code in its platform. The Democratic Convention split along sectional lines, and in two different gatherings chose two different candidates. Northern Democrats elected Douglas. Southern Democrats chose Breckinridge. A party so deeply divided that it put up two candidates is unlikely to succeed in a contest, as it divided its own support among voters into two. In addition, a fourth Southern candidate was contesting the election. The Constitutional Union Party, a one-off centrist grouping composed mainly of old Whigs with former American Party members, hoped to gain support by avoiding the divisive issue of slavery. The party's candidate, Senator John Bell from Tennessee, argued that the status of slavery should remain guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution, but that it should not spread beyond the existing slave states in order to avoid the risk of war. The intention was both to save the Union and to minimize the role of emancipation in the election. Accordingly, Mississippi Senator Jefferson Davis, the future president of the Confederacy, put forward a proposal for not just Douglas and Breckinridge, but also John Bell, to all stand down to allow a compromise candidate to be chosen. This would allow a unified approach to the election, to avoid the fear that Northern votes would send Republican Lincoln to the White House. Breckinridge and Bell agreed, but Douglas and his supporters refused, and all three men went into the election as presidential candidates.